Sometimes the loudest message is spoken in silence. Sometimes the deepest power is found in what you don't say, but in how you carry yourself when the world is watching, and when you master that silence. It is not you who goes chasing. No, it is they who come running back, begging for the place they once had in your life. There is a misconception in this world that silence means surrender, that if you are not speaking, if you are not defending yourself, if you are not chasing after someone, you have somehow lost the battle. But let me tell you, silence is not weakness. Silence is not defeat. Silence is the sharpest sword and the strongest shield you will ever carry. It is not a retreat. It is a declaration that you know your worth. It is standing tall without noise, without drama, without desperation, and letting your presence, your energy, and your self-respect do all speaking for you. When someone expects you to argue, to beg, or to explain yourself endlessly, silence cuts through like lightning in a storm. It shocks them, it unsettles them, because they expected you to fight for their attention, but instead you gave them nothing, and that nothing is louder than any words could ever be. You see, silence is not about ignoring, it's about positioning. It's about saying, I don't need to defend who I am. I don't need to run after anyone who can't see my value. I know my worth, and I will not waste another breath proving it. That silence is strength, and that strength forces people to recognize what they lost the moment they stepped away from you. Think about this. When you shout in anger, when you cry in desperation, when you plead for someone to stay, you give them the power. You hand them control because your emotions are in their hands. But when you stay silent, when you choose calm over chaos, you take all that power back. Suddenly, they are the ones who don't know what's going on in your mind. They wonder if you care, if you miss them. If you've moved on, your silence becomes the greatest mystery, and human beings cannot stand not knowing. That curiosity eats away at them, day by day, night by night, until they are the ones chasing the answers. Silence is not passive. No silence is active. It is a strategy. It is a language of power that only the wise understand. When you remain silent, you are not avoiding the battle. You are controlling it. You are saying, I don't need to lower myself to fight for something that already belongs to me. I will let you figure it out. I will let you realize it in your own time. That's what makes silence so powerful. It doesn't beg, it doesn't demand, it doesn't force. It simply allows the truth to rise on its own, and the truth always comes out. Now listen carefully. Silence is not coldness. It's not about being cruel or heartless. It's about having self-discipline. It's about recognizing that your peace of mind is more valuable than proving your point. Because when you argue with someone who doesn't want to understand, you lose twice, your energy and your dignity. But when you choose silence, you lose nothing. You protect your peace, and you force the other person to sit with the reality of what they've done. Silence, in this way, is not avoidance. It is accountability. It puts the weight back on them. It makes them see themselves clearly without distraction. And here's the truth most people don't realize. Silence echoes long after the moment has passed, long after the argument has ended, long after the doors have closed. Silence keeps speaking. It keeps whispering in their mind, reminding them of the calm they could not shake, the strength they could not break, the respect they could not take. Words fade, but silence lingers. That silence becomes the haunting reminder of what they lost when they lost you. And it is in that silence that their pride breaks, their ego crumbles, and their heart begins to beg for what they once took for granted. We live in a world where people often mistake presence for permanence. They assume that because you are always available, you will always be there. They believe your kindness, your love, your loyalty will never run out. And that's why distance is such a powerful force. Distance creates desire. Distance reminds them that nothing is guaranteed. Not even you. When you step back, when you allow space, you give the other person the gift of realization, and realization is far more powerful than explanation. See, as long as you are present every moment, they cannot feel your absence. As long as you are the one calling, texting, showing up, explaining, they cannot measure your worth. Why? Because it's human nature. We do not value what we think will never leave. But the second you withdraw your energy, the second you stop chasing, a shift happens. Suddenly, the person who thought you would always be there begins to notice the silence. They notice the void. They notice that what they thought was permanent has quietly slipped away. That absence stirs something inside them, something they can't ignore. Distance is not about punishing someone. It's not about playing games. It's about allowing space for the truth to surface. You see, emotions are like fire. When you smother a fire with too much wood, too much attention, it suffocates. But when you give it air, when you allow space, it grows stronger. Desire works the same way. When you step back, when you stop feeding them constant attention, they suddenly feel the emptiness. And that emptiness reignites the fire. That space makes them want, crave, even chase the very presence they once overlooked. Distance also creates perspective. When you are close, all they see are the flaws, the arguments, the little imperfections. But when you step away, when you no longer stand right in front of them, their mind begins to filter differently. Suddenly, the flaws don't matter as much. Suddenly, the good memories shine brighter. Distance softens the pain and amplifies the beauty. And in that distance, the mind tricks the heart into longing. The things they once criticized become the things they now miss. The voice they took for granted becomes the silence that keeps them awake at night. And here's the truth. Distance is not forever. It's not abandonment. It's not walking away from love. It's walking toward clarity. It's creating enough room for the other person to ask themselves the hard questions. Why do I miss them? Why can't I stop thinking about them? Why does this silence hurt more than any words? That questioning is the seed of desire. The longer the distance, the deeper those questions grow. And eventually, those questions turn into answers, and those answers turn into action. And that action is them coming back, realizing what they had, desperate to hold it again. Never forget this. Closeness may bring comfort, but distance brings clarity, and clarity always leads to desire. When you step back, you are not losing them. You are letting them lose themselves in the thought of you. You are letting their heart, their mind, their soul do the chasing. You are letting them taste absence so they can finally value presence. And that is why distance is not the end of love. It is often the beginning of deeper love. Because in the silence of space, desire is born, and desire is the fuel that makes them return, begging for what they once overlooked. There comes a moment when words lose their power. You can say I'm fine 1,000 times, but if your energy is heavy, people will feel the truth. You can say I don't care as much as you want, but if your energy still clings to the situation, the message will not land. That is why energy speaks louder than words. Long after the conversation ends, long after your voice grows silent, your energy continues to radiate. It's invisible, yet undeniable. It is the frequency you carry, the vibration you release, and it tells the world who you are, without you ever having to explain. When you choose silence after disappointment, your words stop, but your energy speaks volumes. That calm strength you carry, that quiet confidence you show, it unsettles the other person. They expected drama, they expected begging, they expected to see you broken, but instead, what they see is composure. They see dignity. They see self-respect wrapped around you like armor, and that energy is louder than any speech you could ever give. It doesn't scream. It doesn't demand. It simply exists, steady and powerful, impossible to ignore. Energy cannot be faked. You can wear a smile, but if your spirit is broken, people will feel the fracture. You can post pictures, laugh in public, act like you've moved on, but energy always tells the truth. That's why the most powerful thing you can do after silence is not pretend. It is to truly embody strength, to truly stand in your worth, to truly know that your value does not decrease simply because someone failed to see it. That kind of authentic energy radiates everywhere you go, and the one who left, the one who doubted, will feel it most of all. Understand this: people remember energy more than words. They may forget what you said, but they will never forget how your presence made them feel. They may dismiss your arguments, but they cannot escape the quiet power you carried when you walked away. That memory lingers, that energy follows them like a shadow. Every time they encounter someone else, every time they seek what they had with you, that energy becomes the measuring stick. And no matter where they go, no matter who they meet, they will compare it. And they will remember that your silence was not emptiness, it was strength. Your energy sets the tone for the story they replay in their mind. If you leave with anger, they remember conflict. If you leave with tears, they remember weakness. But if you leave with silence and composure, they remember power. And power leaves a lasting impression. It haunts their memory in ways words never could. Because words can be dismissed as emotion, but energy is undeniable truth. It cannot be debated. It cannot be argued away. It simply is, and in that truth they begin to realize what they lost. They begin to crave the energy that once surrounded them. So, never underestimate the power of your energy. Guard it, protect it, nurture it, because it speaks louder than anything you could ever say. And when your energy radiates strength, peace, and self-respect, it becomes magnetic. The very person who once took you for granted will feel pulled back, not by your words, not by your actions, but by the invisible force of your energy. That is the language they cannot resist. That is the power that makes them return, not because you spoke, but because your energy spoke for you. Absence has a power that presence can never achieve. When you are always available, always giving, always showing up no matter how you're treated, the balance of power tips away from you. But the moment you step back, the moment you allow your absence to be felt, everything shifts. Absence flips the dynamic. Absence forces them to feel the weight of what they once took for granted. And that shift, quiet, invisible, unstoppable, turns the tables in your favor without you lifting a finger. Think about it. As long as you're there, they don't have to imagine life without you. They don't have to question what it feels like to wake up and not see your name on their phone. They don't have to wonder what it feels like to go through their day without your encouragement, your laughter, your presence. But the second you step away, the second you stop showing up, reality hits them. They begin to notice the empty spaces where you used to be. They begin to notice the silence that lingers where your voice once filled the room. Absence is not emptiness, it's exposure. It exposes the truth of how much you mattered. Absence has a way of magnifying value. It's human nature. We are blind to blessings when they're right in front of us. But the moment they're gone, our vision clears. That's when we replay the memories. That's when we measure what we lost. That's when the little things, the jokes, small kindnesses, the steady presence, become treasures we can't stop thinking about. Absence is a magnifying glass that takes what they overlooked and burns it into their heart with fire. And that fire, that's regret, that's longing, that's desire. When you argue, they dismiss your words. When you beg, they feel powerful. But when you go absent, they lose control. They no longer know what you're thinking, where you are, what you're doing, or if you even care. That uncertainty eats at their pride. That silence becomes unbearable, and slowly they shift from confidence to confusion, from dismissal to desperation. Absence makes them the one who waits by the phone. Absence makes them the one who replays the story in their mind, wondering if they made the biggest mistake of their life. Here's the secret: absence forces accountability. When you are present, they can blame you. They can't argue, deflect, or ignore. But when you're absent, they have no one to fight with but themselves. They are left with their thoughts, their guilt, their memories, and that quiet battle inside them is more powerful than anything you could ever say. Absence does the work for you. It teaches them a lesson you never could. It shows them that life without you is not freedom, it's emptiness, and so the tables turn. The one who thought they held the power begins to realize they've lost it. The one who walked away starts to feel the weight of what they abandoned. The one who dismissed your worth begins to crave it back. Absence is the reset button. It breaks the cycle. It shifts the roles. And when that shift happens, they will come back. Not with pride, not with arrogance, but with humility. They will come back not as the one who left, but as the one who longs. That is the quiet, unstoppable victory of absence. There is nothing more magnetic, nothing more undeniable than a person who carries themselves with self-respect. It does not shout. It does not beg. It does not chase. It simply stands, tall and unwavering, and demands recognition without ever asking for it. Self-respect is the foundation of true power, because when you respect yourself, the world has no choice but to respect you too. And those who once overlooked you will feel the sting of their mistake when they realize you will never lower your value just to keep their presence. When you carry self-respect, you send a message without speaking a word. That message says, I know who I am, I know what I deserve, and I will not trade my peace for someone who cannot see my worth. That kind of energy is rare, and rare is irresistible. People are drawn to what they cannot easily have, to what they cannot easily control. And when you show that you would rather walk alone than crawl for attention, you instantly shift the power dynamic. They no longer see you as someone who needs them. They see you as someone they need. Understand this. Self-respect sets boundaries, and boundaries create attraction. When you do not allow disrespect, when you do not tolerate half-effort, when you do not accept crumbs in place of commitment, you show the world that you are not desperate. You are disciplined, and discipline is more attractive than desperation. It tells the other person that your love is valuable, your time is sacred, and your energy is not free. The very limits you set become the very reasons they chase you, because people will always pursue what they cannot easily possess. The beauty of self-respect is that it transforms silence into strength. Without self-respect, silence feels like fear. Fear of speaking, fear of losing, fear of being alone. But with self-respect, silence becomes confidence. It becomes the loudest declaration of independence. It says, I don't need to fight for a place in your life. If you cannot see my worth, I will not waste another breath convincing you. And that kind of composure cannot be ignored. It forces others to stop, to look, and to realize what they are losing by underestimating you. Self-respect is also the anchor that keeps you steady when emotions rise. It keeps you from chasing when you want to run. It keeps you from begging when your heart aches. It keeps you from lowering yourself just to keep someone who was never meant to stay. And because of that, it commands attention. The one who left, the one who thought you would crumble, the one who believed you would always be there suddenly finds themselves drawn back to the strength they cannot replicate anywhere else. They return not because you asked, but because your self-respect created a standard they cannot escape. And here is the undeniable truth. People may ignore your words, they may dismiss your feelings, but they cannot ignore your self-respect. It lingers in their memory. It echoes in their regret. It shines so brightly that no matter how far they run, it follows them. Self-respect is a force they cannot defeat, a light they cannot dim, and when you stand in it fully, unshaken, it becomes the very reason they turn around, humbled, and beg for the place they once abandoned, because nothing commands attention more than someone who refuses to lose themselves just to be loved. Silence is not forever. Silence is a season, a test, a mirror. It creates space, it builds pressure, it forces reflection. But when that silence finally breaks, it does not break softly, it breaks with power. It breaks at the very moment when the other person has been consumed by the weight of your absence, the echo of your energy, and the undeniable truth of your self-respect. And in that breaking, the tables turn completely. They do not come back with pride. They do not return with arrogance. No, when silence breaks, they return humbled, desperate, begging for what they once discarded. The reason is simple. Silence builds hunger. When you withhold words, when you withhold attention, when you withhold access, you create scarcity, and scarcity creates value. The human mind craves what it cannot have. The human heart longs for what it cannot reach. And when your silence stands unbroken for long enough, it transforms you from someone they took for granted into someone they cannot stop desiring. By the time the silence ends, the hunger is unbearable. They are no longer the one with control. They are the one starving for your presence. When silence finally breaks, it carries a weight that words alone could never carry. If you had argued from the start, your voice would have been dismissed. If you had begged, your worth would have been questioned. But because you stayed silent, because you held your dignity, your first word after that silence hits like thunder. It cuts through pride. It cuts through ego. It cuts through excuses. That first word becomes undeniable proof of your strength, and it forces them to see that you were never weak. You were waiting. You were never powerless. You were in control all along. And here is the beautiful paradox. Silence makes them chase the very sound of your voice. At first, they may enjoy the quiet, thinking they are free, but as time passes, that quiet turns into torture. They remember the way you spoke life into them. They remember the way your words carried love, guidance, encouragement. They remember the comfort of your presence. And when those memories meet the reality of silence, the longing becomes unbearable. That longing transforms into regret. That regret transforms into pursuit. And in that pursuit, they beg, not because you asked, but because their heart demands it. What makes this moment powerful is that it is not about revenge. It's not about punishing them. It's about truth. Silence reveals truth, truth about you, truth about them, truth about the connection. And when that truth is finally undeniable, it breaks them down. They see your worth clearly. They feel your value deeply, and they return not to take you for granted again, but to hold on to what they now realize they cannot live without. They beg because silence has shown them what words never could. Life without you is emptiness, so understand this. Your silence is not weakness. Your silence is not loss. Your silence is preparation. It is building the stage for the return. And when that silence finally breaks, it does not just reopen communication. It redefines it. It shifts the power. It changes the dynamic. It makes them the seeker, the chaser, the beggar, because silence is not the end of the story. No, silence is the turning point. And when it breaks, it guarantees one thing: they will not return casually. They will return desperate. They will return humbled. They will return begging for the place they once took for granted. So hear me clearly. Your silence is not emptiness. It is not weakness. It is not defeat. Your silence is strategy. It is power. It is self-respect. Every moment you hold your peace, you are not losing ground. You are gaining it. Every second you stay silent, you are not forgotten. You are remembered more deeply than ever before. And when that silence has done its work, when it has pressed on their heart and echoed in their mind, they will return, not because you asked, not because you chased, but because your silence revealed the truth they could no longer ignore. Stand tall in your quiet strength. Do not lower yourself. Do not explain yourself. Do not beg. Hold your silence. Protect your dignity and trust the process. Because in time, the one who walked away will find themselves at the door they once closed, knocking with desperation, pleading for another chance, begging for the place they once took for granted. That is the power of silence. That is the victory of patience, and that is your guarantee.